Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host Shannon Lane Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, David Jackowitz, Evolution Financial Group, and John Sharp, Hardenberg Insurance Group. Shannon, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air with us today, please?
Sure, Herb. We have a great lineup today. We'll be starting off with Chuck Ormsby, managing partner of Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg and Torchia, followed by Rick Stiebritz, president of Fischer Cunnane. Then we'll have Ira Saltiel, director of Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange. And we'll be wrapping up today with Michael Beauchamp, founder and CEO of Go.
Let's get to know our first guest, Chuck Ormsby, managing partner, Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg and Torchia. What is Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg and Torchia, Chuck?
One of the largest law firms in Montgomery County. We have 30 attorneys, 60 employees, and we are serving the entrepreneurial spirit. Business lawyers serving business people.
And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Originally from the Philadelphia area. I have a brother and a sister, and I am the oldest of three.
At 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to? What were you doing as a kid?
Aside from going to school like everyone else, I was cutting grass, washing cars, delivering newspapers, and playing baseball in the fields of my friend's house.
Mm-hmm. And Shannon, you want to give me a hand?
Sure, Chuck. In the green room, you mentioned that faith was always something that was important and still is important. How early did that start showing up for you?
It came very early in my life. I recall at a very young age, maybe 10, being dropped off at our church by my mother for Eucharistic adoration. I'm a Catholic, and spending that time by myself. My mom left me there and went home, came back and picked me up.
That stands out to me because my dad has always done the same, and I've gone with him here and there. But at 10 years old, to sign up for that sort of commitment, what does that tell us about you?
Well, something gripped me. It probably came from my parents and their practice. But I've also learned as a result that the discipline of the faith has been very helpful to me, and I've learned a lot about sacrifice.
Chuck, I got a question for you. You mentioned that one of the things that really has gripped you was your faith. The other thing that really gripped you was doing something with high schools in Africa. What?
Yeah, so that is a very long story that I don't have time to get into, but we are building high schools in Africa, a high school in Africa right now, that is built on the land where a genocide took place. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed in Uganda.
Why are you doing this?
Well, as a result of our faith, and we started off doing youth ministry, and we ended up in Africa.
Who's we? Me
and my wife and my family.
So you're leading this charge.
Yes, my son-in-law was there one time, asked by an African woman, "Why are you here?" He said, "I wanted to see the family business."
Okay. David?
Chuck, in the green room, you were talking about playing sports in the neighborhood. And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. You learned at a very young age that if you wanted to play baseball, you need a certain number of players. And so it taught me to organize people, not be afraid to go knock on their door and drag them out of the house to get them to play left field or right field or whatever you needed. So it taught me to go out and get talent.
Were you the guy knocking on the doors?
I was the guy knocking on the doors, counting noses and saying, how many more do we need? And even dispatching others to go and get other people in other neighborhoods.
So how do you think that experience relates to what you do every day now?
Our law firm is a collection of big firm talent that we bring out to the suburbs to have a life. And so I go knock on the doors of big firms and ask people to come join us. Play ball.
Hey, Chuck, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the lawn cutting business. How many lawns did you have on your roster?
I started off with my next door neighbor, and by the time I was about 15, I probably had 40 lawns. Took a lot of organization, took a lot of discipline at that age to, not want to go play ball, but to get the grass cut.
So how did you go about getting these 40 clients?
Word of mouth, and also persistence, knocking on doors saying, hey, look, your door or your lawn looks like it needs to be cut, and I can do it for about $10. So, put myself out there.
Well, it still sounds like a pretty lucrative business. So what did you do with your profits?
My mother was very strict about making sure that I turned in 2/3 of whatever I earned. I'm not sure why I was so honest about it. I was from a very early age. I guess it was my faith influence, and I had to only keep 1/3. But I never told her what I was charging, so she trusted me.
So I'd imagine that has a little bit to do with how you're managing your firm now. Can you tell us how it relates?
Well, I'm blessed with partners who give me complete reign with regard to the management of the cash flow of the firm and handling all financial matters. Mm-hmm. I think they put the same trust in me that my mother put in me at that time.
John?
Chuck, knowing that both your partners and your mom trusted you with their money, how does that relate to your client relationships?
Well, my clients start out as just clients, and then they become friends. And then oftentimes my friends become my clients. So you start in one category, end up in the other. And I think it's a matter of trust. I think they come to trust you, and you build on that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds similar to the baseball team when you were a kid.
That's right.
You mentioned, Chuck, that something happened when you were 17 where the teachers in your school district went on strike and you stepped up and took on a role. What was that all about?
When I was a senior in high school, I was the captain of the basketball team, and our teachers went on strike. And we wanted to play basketball once the season started and the strike was over, so we needed to practice. I went out and found a gym and organized the practices and ran the practices as if I was the coach. Again, back to the trust factor. My coach, who was on the other side of the picket line, knew that I was doing it, and he was okay with it, and the players were too.
So what's that stepping up and becoming the coach and organizing the basketball team have to do with faith and high schools in Africa and running this law firm? What's the connection there with everything?
Well, I think it involves sacrifice. I think you had to be willing to sacrifice your time, your effort, and certainly with Africa, your money, and even be willing to put yourself out there. I mean, it's risky to go to the jungles of Africa. I've been there 13 times, but it takes discipline and sacrifice.
Wait a minute. You're running. You evidently have a reasonably good reputation. You organize the basketball team. You're a faith. You're running this major law firm in Montgomery County. It's really well respected. And I'm trying. Why Africa again? Give me that again. I'm not sure I understand. We ran a high school youth ministry, my wife and I, for 10 years, and a priest came along at one time and invited us to go to Africa. We had never thought that we would ever be in Africa. We decided to give it a shot. We went over there, and the priest, the line was, Americans feel good about building things, but they never return. He said, you will build relationships and fall in love with my people, and then you'll always return. Well, 15 years later, millions of dollars and hundreds of kids graduating and going on to the university over there. The wisdom of that particular phrase is undeniable. What tugs at you there? What's the piece there?
The main thing is the education of girls. If you want to change a culture, you educate the girls, because the girls will teach the kids. And if you want to see what it looks like when you don't educate the girls, there's many countries in the Middle East you can go and look at, and you can see what kind of effect you get.
So do you have the experience of talking and seeing the changes that you've been able to encourage?
Yes. So we've had this school for about 10 years now, and we finally graduated somebody who became a medical doctor over there. And that's quite rewarding.
What do you mean?
So this child came through our system and went on to university over in Uganda, and then went on to a medical school in Uganda, and now she's practicing medicine over there.
How's that make you feel?
It's very rewarding, but also it's daunting because we have thousands of other kids over there that are incredibly poor and need to get through the system and get educated and move on with their life.
I got a question. You're running this law firm, which is, about 100 people or so. How many hours a week? What time do you start with the law firm and end with the law firm? And how do you have time for all this stuff, let alone a family?
Well, it's I don't draw those distinctions. It's all, it's part of my life. Practicing laws, it's part of my life, and Africa is part of my life. And if you looked at my calendar, it is full from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, but I'm not distinguishing what's clients and what's Africa, and it all blends together, and it just seems to work. And again, my partners encourage me and support me with all the efforts, even in Africa.
What's the website address for this organization known as Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg Torchia?
Oh, it's sogtlaw.com.
Let me have that one more time.
SOGTlaw.com.
Is there also any place on the web we can find out about this Africa stuff you're doing?
You can go to bridgetouganda.org.
Let me have that again.
bridgetouganda.org.
Mm-hmm. We've been speaking with Chuck Ormsby, managing partner of Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg Torchia, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Rick Stiebritz, who is president of Fischer Cunnane. Rick, what is Fischer Cunnane? What are you guys doing?
Fischer Cunnane is a 50-person regional CPA firm in the Philadelphia area in Westchester.
All righty. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where is you in the pecking order?
I'm originally from Delaware County in the Philadelphia area. I'm one of three. I have an older sister and a younger brother.
8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to? What's that list look like?
I played all different kinds of sports, swimming, basketball, baseball, football, and I had a lot of different jobs. I was a newspaper delivery boy. I worked as an all-around helper in a beer store. I worked for a veterinarian. I just did a multitude of different jobs growing up.
Interesting. You mentioned in the green room that you were curious as a kid. I'm wondering how young were you when that curiosity showed up?
As far back as I can remember, even when I was 6 or 7, I just wanted to understand the way things worked and why things happened and understand the reasons behind things. So I was very curious and an explorer as a kid.
Didn't you mention that your father bought you a chemistry set when you were 6 years old? Why would you do that?
My dad bought me a chemistry set, and I was pretty young. I think I was under the recommended age for the chemistry set, but I would like to mix things together and experiment and find out different reactions from playing around with things. And I was just always interested in what was going to happen next.
What's that have to do with building this successful accounting firm known as Fischer Cunnane?
There's just a lot going on in our company with 50 people. Everybody's working on something different. We're all handling client relationships. So understanding what's going on around me and understanding how it all fits together, I think it helped me when I was young to where I am now.
David?
Rick, tell us about your parents. What did they do for a living?
My dad worked in a pharmaceutical plant, and he also had a side job. He fixed lawnmowers for people. He worked a business out of our garage. My mom was an executive for a media company, and she had a side business where she did needlepoint and sewing for people and companies.
Seeing them have those second jobs, what did that do to you?
I just got the impression from my parents that they were always working, and there was a reason for that. And as I got older, I understood my parents were working 2 jobs to put money away to send my brother, my sister, and I to college. But, they always had time for us. These second jobs, they worked out of our house. So it never felt like we were abandoned as kids. We were always part of a hardworking family.
What did you get from that experience that you take with you every day to work now?
I watched how my parents, especially my dad, interacted with his customers out of the garage behind our house. how he was successful in dealing with these people, how they would come back to him, how his little business grew beyond what he imagined, even beyond what he could handle, just because he understood the importance of relating to people. And I learned that from my dad at a very early age and took it with me in life.
I understand that your parents both worked second jobs and in order to put you guys through college. Do you think your college education paid off?
Oh, I definitely think it did. I always understood where I was coming from and that I was getting an opportunity that my parents never had. And I was determined to make the most of it. I, knew that I had a once in a lifetime opportunity that had been provided to me. So that's where I went with it.
That's really who you are. Your middle name is determined, isn't it?
Yeah. They face a lot of challenges and, but we've learned how to overcome them. So,
Shannon?
In the green room, you mentioned something about getting a job at a golf club. Tell us more about that.
I wanted to learn how to play golf. My dad didn't play golf. I really didn't know anyone who did play golf, but I lived near a golf course, lived near several. I rode my bicycle over. I went in to where the head groundskeeper's office was, introduced myself and asked if I could work on the golf course. And I did that summers when I was in school, and I learned how to play golf from the people I worked with, the people at the country club.
So you saw this vision of kind of getting this job and then learning to play as you were working and hanging out at the golf club. And among your colleagues, you're known for having this long-term vision. How does that help your clients?
I feel like I can see things that other people can't see sometimes. I feel like I can see the direction that the company's heading in. I can see trouble down the road. Sometimes I feel like I have vision that's only to me. And I feel it's my job to make sure that the people in my company understand what I see and where we're going.
Okay, John?
So, Rick, you talked about how your parents were always working, and you also said in the green room that you were always doing something as a kid too. Can you help us understand how that related and how else that showed up for you as a child?
I just was always, I needed to be doing something. I couldn't be sitting. So, if I wasn't working or if I wasn't going to school or I would be, exploring somewhere, someplace. And, so that was out of what I do.
So Rick, you were rather active as a kid, it sounds like. What other interests did you have, and how's that relating to building this firm? The curiosity you have and the determination and the activity.
Yeah, I just somebody who could organize people, and because I think I had the ability to see what was going on down the road, I think at a young age to get people to follow me. I didn't even always know where I was going, but I always wanted to find out. So I think from an early age, I attract and lead people.
Well, what's the best part of your job, do you think?
I think it's people. Having the responsibility for all the employees that work here, taking that responsibility very, very seriously. I like the fact I'm equipped to do this job and enjoy it. It's not an easy job where it's very difficult. Somebody lead the firm, and I'm proud that I had the opportunity to be that person.
It's interesting. You're running an accounting firm, and you would think that it has to do with numbers and bookkeeping and stuff like that. But it sounds to me like you're really in the people business.
Yeah, for me, it is. For me and for all of us, because dealing with clients goes way beyond the numbers. Clients come to us to help us, for us to help them solve their problem. Having understanding where clients are coming from, how to work together with people to get the best out of people, and never losing sight of your goals. I'm able to do that here at the firm, and that's what I really appreciate about my job.
Do you ever see yourself retiring?
I don't know how, because somebody's got to do what I do when I step away from this. So, It's probably going to be a long process of me finding the right person who's going to come in behind me and do what I do when I'm ready to step aside. But for right now, I can't see that happening.
So are you doing your job for the money?
No, part of it is, I guess the money part of it takes care of itself. But I'm doing the job because I feel like it gives me purpose. It gives me purpose to have responsibility for the people here that work at my firm, to have responsibility to grow this firm beyond what we are today, to build a future for everybody that works here and for our clients. And for me, it goes way beyond the money. I'm just lucky the money works out and it takes care of itself.
So what does it do for you?
It gives me the freedom to pursue what I want to do. And and for me, that's what it's all about. Enjoying life. I'm able to have good balance between what's important in my personal life and things that drive me to be a better professional.
So what's important to you in your personal life?
My family. Family is everything. And if I'm not here, I'm basically with my family, involved with them. I have 4 children that are growing up and helping them as they navigate their way through life.
What's the similarity between the way you run the firm and your family?
I think, it's just making sure people are okay and making sure they have what they need and that they know they have somebody to talk to in order to help them be successful.
What's the website address for this organization known as Fischer Cunnane?
Fischer Cunnane is FISCHER CUNNANE. It's a long one, FischerCunnane.com.
We've been speaking with Rick Stiebritz, who's president of Fischer Cunnane here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't stick around. Please stick around. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Ira Saltiel, Director, Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange. Ira, what is the Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange? What are you guys doing?
The Bike Exchange is an all-volunteer effort by 50 volunteers who rehab used bikes that are donated and then sell them, and all money goes directly to the Boys and Girls Club.
Can you give us an idea of how many bikes you've sold, rehabbed and sold in the last year, and how much money you've been able to raise for the Boys and Girls Club?
In the last year, we have sold just shy of 2,000 bikes, and we've collected a gross amount of money of $200,000. Mm-hmm. This is our 12th year. We have sold over 23,000 bikes, and we've given the Boys and Girls Club, after expenses, over $1.3 million. And this is all with volunteers. It's quite something.
Well, what kind of salary do you take for doing this?
There is nobody gets a salary, except we do have a component where we train interns from the Boys and Girls Club, and then a paid individual from the Boys and Girls Club works with the kids to teach them how to work in a shop.
So you're not getting paid anything, but yet you're spending, and on top of it, you're spending a lot of time with this organization. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I am from originally New Brunswick area in central New Jersey. I have a younger sister, 6 years younger.
And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to? What were you doing?
I played a lot of baseball as a kid, rode my bicycle, and I had a little company that I started with a friend of mine named Arthur. It was called Artira Home Care. We did babysitting, lawn mowing, window washing. We washed cars and waxed them, and that took up a lot of our time during the week.
All right, Caleb.
Hey, Ira, I'd like to hear about your baseball career. What positions did you play?
I started out in the outfield, then I moved over to pitching, and I did that all the way through junior high and high school.
So what was that experience like, moving from just a guy in the outfield to kind of having the spotlight on you as the pitcher?
Yeah, that was quite something. The first time I did it, it didn't go so well. I walked in 9 runs. That was a little disconcerting, but it did entice me to learn how to pitch a little better after that, for sure.
What specifically did you do to learn how to pitch better? What kind of tactics?
I worked on my control, and that was a big part of it because I was a little wild as a pitcher.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in the green room that you have about 50 volunteers or so. How does it relate to the control you learn as a pitcher to kind of keeping your arms around all the volunteers and keeping them engaged?
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts to this bike exchange. There are people who collect bikes. There are people who do the finances. There are people who manage and who sell. And it's like running a small company with 50 volunteers. And I think that whatever I'd learned in my childhood and past work experiences just applied very well over to what I'm doing at the bike exchange.
Okay, you're all about volunteering and philanthropy. How young were you when that first started showing up?
That really didn't start until I retired, which is about 13 years ago. At that point, I decided to give back to the community. A lot of people have done a lot of good stuff for me and my family. I have a disabled daughter, and a lot of people do things for her that I can't do. And at that point, I decided to do at least one thing a day for somebody else. And doing this bike exchange is a big part of that.
And what have you learned from your daughter that you bring with you into work every day?
I learned that that it takes a lot of work to help people who can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm. David?
All right, tell us about mom and dad.
My father worked all his life in the shoe industry. He started out as managing a shoe store and then worked his way up to being a buyer for a major shoe company. And my mother was a homemaker who was a voracious reader.
Are you more like mom or dad?
Probably more like my father. He was a nice, soft-spoken man with a very sharp sense of humor.
What did you learn from him that you take every day to work?
I think just hard work and keeping at it, no matter what the challenges, because he had a lot of challenges and health issues during his life.
Mm-hmm. John?
Ira, I want to talk about Art Ira, the business you started when you were 12 years old with your friend Arthur. How long did you guys operate the business?
We did it from about age 12 until we got our driver's licenses at age 17, at which point we had some other jobs.
Tell me how the business evolved in that 5-year period.
Yeah, so it started out, we were both mowing our own lawns, and we said, hey, let's see if we can do it for neighbors. And that grew into about 12 to 15 lawns a week. And then we expanded it into washing windows, 50 cents a window. This is back in the early 60s. We didn't make a lot of money, but I guess in those days it was quite a good amount.
Sounds like a deal to me. When you're working with a friend for that long a period of time, it's like working with a partner. So can you talk to me a little bit about the relationship that you had during that period with Arthur?
Yeah, we were very close friends right from when we met. And in fact, we are still close friends to this day. And we share a lot of things together, a lot of experiences, and growing up together was quite an experience.
I've got to imagine that all the experiences that you shared and learned during that business also tie into the exchange you're doing now. Could you connect the two for us?
Yeah, I think working with somebody, you learn how to deal with everything that they have in their personalities, and we certainly have a lot of different personalities in the bike exchange, and motivating them, making sure everybody's doing what they need to do is a big part of the job.
There's a rather well-respected and large bike club called Princeton Freewheelers, which is centered in and around the Princeton area in New Jersey, that you're also the president of. It's about 600 members, which is huge, and it's continuing to grow. And from what I understand, there's a real camaraderie there. I'm wondering what the connection between this bike club, Princeton Freewheelers, is, and this organization known as the Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange.
Yeah, so the Princeton Freewheelers were a big part of how the bike exchange started. When it was started 12 years ago, the fellow who formed it, my predecessor, came to the Freewheelers because these people obviously knew about bikes, and about 25 or 26 people signed up to start volunteering, and the rest is history. We all love cycling, and this is just a bit of an outgrowth of that, and an outgrowth that helps the community as well.
Mm-hmm. The bikes that do any of the folks from Princeton Freewheelers donate bikes to the bike exchange?
Yeah, they do. And the bikes that we get from them are very good bikes. The bikes we sell, we average about $100 a bike. Kids' bikes can go from $10 to $20 to $30. Adult bikes are mostly around $80 to $100, with a couple that are maybe 3,000, 4,000 bikes originally. We can sell those for upwards of.
And where do these bikes come from? How do you go about getting these bikes that you're then selling and giving the money to a charity?
We run bike drives throughout the year. Major corporations, small companies, insurance companies, real estate companies, all do bike drives for us. We just had a major car company with several locations do it. The Mercer County Park System did a bike drive where we got 400 bikes, surprisingly, last year. And we're so well known now that bikes come in almost every day. We have drop-off points, about 10 or 12 at various bike shops around the central Jersey. And we're quite amazed that we can get over 2,000 bikes a year donated to us.
Well, it makes sense that people would want to donate their bikes to you guys because nobody's making any money. You're not making any salary. You know, in fact, I know that because we've talked, you're investing a lot of time in this. The other volunteers, nobody's making any money. Everybody's volunteering. So anybody that donates a bike knows that 100% of the money that comes in is going right to the charity. Am I correct about that?
That's 100%. And it's very interesting when customers come in and once we explain what our mission is, because we're not a typical bicycle store, it really helps in making the sale.
What's the website address for the Boys and Girls Club?
All right. It's bcgmercer.org, and then just click on the bike exchange.
And how about Princeton Freewheelers?
It's princetonfreewheelers.com.
We've been speaking with Iris Saltiel, who is the director of the Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment, right after this quick break.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
Back, you're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Michael Beauchamp, who's founder and CEO of Go. What is Go?
Yeah, Go is a venture-backed car subscription service that's both cheaper and easier than traditional car ownership.
Where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I'm an only child from Kentucky.
What makes an only child special?
You know, I think only children have a tendency to get bored easier than others. And so you got to look elsewhere to entertain yourself. I'll be the first to admit I can be a little selfish, but I think, depending on what you're doing in life, that can be both good and bad.
I don't know. In getting to know you, I don't know that you're selfish. It sounds to me like you're pretty driven and you have a lot of ideas. What were you up to 8 to 14? What kind of stuff were you doing?
8 to 14, I was pretty normal. I was trying to be a professional golfer, professional, basketball player. And like a lot of kids, you might think you're better than you are. And it's just hard to be a professional. Worked a couple odd jobs along the way. Was a lazy student, but I had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. How young were you when you knew you wanted to run your own business, when you wanted to start your own business?
Probably late middle school, early high school.
Mm-hmm. How'd you get that influence, or how were you exposed to that whole idea?
I honestly don't know. And I don't think that I come from, I definitely don't come from a line of entrepreneurs. I didn't have a lemonade stand when I was 6. I think it's just wanting to make something of myself and seeing problems in the world and being bold or crazy enough to go solve them.
Make something of yourself? What are you talking about?
Yes. I mean, my parents worked hard. They did a good job, working state government jobs and also side jobs to, give me a good education. I went to school with a lot of folks that were pretty wealthy. We weren't. And so I'm sure that, talking to a therapist, you're going to figure out that that's what drove me to want to really make something of myself and take a step forward that not everybody was.
David?
Michael, you mentioned playing basketball growing up. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I got into basketball at an early age. I was really tall when I was really young, taller than everybody. So I started out playing center, and then I kind of stopped growing, and everybody else kept growing. And so I moved from center to shooting guard. And shooting guard, you're more of a leadership role on the team. And then one of the schools I went to in middle school when I joined, nobody played basketball. And I, for whatever reason, was able to cobble together a team of folks that had barely played before and didn't know which goal was their goal. But over time, we got decent and won a couple games. But again, had a good time.
You actually put the team together?
I did.
So what do you think that has to do with the startup now?
Something that didn't before exist, wanting to be the one that makes it exist.
Perfect. Shannon.
Michael, you mentioned that both of your parents had state government jobs, and then they also had side jobs to help put you into good schools. Looking back on that now, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so my parents worked at Kmart sporadically at different times when I was in middle school, and going to school with a bunch of rich kids, it's somewhat embarrassing, I think, when your parents do that, and that's just because you're a kid that doesn't know better. But looking back, I'm proud that they put ego aside to do what was necessary to pay for that school for me. Certainly, I wish I'd appreciated it more at the time, but I do now.
And you also mentioned your own kids in the green room. What have they taught you that you bring with you into work every day?
Oh God, patience. I've got twin boys, and so they'll definitely teach you patience for sure. But no, I think it's just, you can either argue living vicariously through them or just wanting to give them the opportunities that I didn't have. And I think that education really matters, if for no other reason than it gives you a better network and better opportunities. And so I want to make sure that they have those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. John?
Michael, you mentioned in the green room that when you were younger, you always wanted to build a business. Was there any particular type of business you wanted to build?
Not from an early age. So, now I'm in the car business, and really that started, I couldn't tell you how a car works. Don't ask me to look under the hood, but I always really liked cars a lot. And I would sit there in math class, not paying attention, just flipping through car magazines. And so I think that from my perspective, there was always an interest in that industry. I just didn't know until now what to do to bring innovation to it.
One of the other things you mentioned was you wanted whatever business it was to be impactful. Can you define what impactful is for us?
Yeah, so it's providing something that never before existed to lots of customers and doing so in a way that really improves their life. I'm not going to say that we're curing cancer. I wish we were doing something there. Maybe that's for, the next life. But making a difference to a lot of folks just by giving them something they didn't before have access to.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned something about being successful, one of the most successful people in your family. How can you tie the success to the business and the impact that you're making?
Yeah, I think that, look, I grew up in Kentucky, and there are fewer opportunities in some states than others. And obviously no longer live in Kentucky. Take that for what you want. But yeah, I mean, my family, I think, just didn't grow up that way. Their parents didn't teach them perhaps some of the things that mine did, or the drive that I developed internally to think bigger. And the first business I started, I moved to Texas to start it right after I graduated college, having never been to Texas before. So it's just the bold mentality to take risk.
Mm-hmm. Caleb.
Michael, you also mentioned aspiring to be a pro golfer. What made you think that you could become a professional golfer?
I mean, I was all right. Like I was probably like a 2 or 3 handicap, but there's a big difference between a 2 or 3 handicap when you're playing with your buddies and going out and shooting a solid score in a tournament. And so I just didn't have the mindset for golf. There's a lot of mental acumen needed to be a good golfer. Yeah, I could go out and hack it around, but I'm glad I'm not doing that for a living. Making a 5-foot putt to feed your family is pretty stressful.
Yeah, I'm not a 2 or 3 handicap golfer. That's pretty good. But I think there's probably some similarities between the golf course and starting a business, being an entrepreneur. So how do you think it relates from your golf career to now starting and running a business?
It's hard. Golf, even though the ball doesn't move, is not simple. I mean, every little, minuscule degree that club is open or closed, you're going to mishit it right or left. And so it's not a simple sport to execute well. And you have to do it times 18 holes, or if you're a professional golfer, times 72 holes. And the same thing is true here, that performing well for a day or for a week, that's wonderful, but to build a successful business, and in this case, we're hoping a multi-billion-dollar company, it's high levels of execution over a long stretch.
Michael, is this the first business you started?
No, so I started an outdoor advertising company right after I graduated from college. I tried to start a billboard company in college and realized I was about 20 years too young. All the billboards were grandfathered in. And so I started a different business. I ran that for about 12 years. That was more of a small business and provided a nice lifestyle for my wife and I, a comfortable existence, stress-free. And then I found that I was just bored and I wanted more. And so I said to her, all right, we're going to sell our house to invest in the company and we're going to start over. And having a spouse that takes that risk with you, that's special.
Wait. So you had built a business, you were making a nice living, but that wasn't enough. So then you went ahead and had a conversation with your wife where you were going to put the house at risk?
On our honeymoon. Yep. Yeah, that's right. No, she supported it, and that matters a lot. And I think that she knows me and got to know me. What is it, for richer or poorer in the vows? That certainly applies. And she's lived this roller coaster ride with me.
Is she still married to you?
She still is. Yeah. For some reason.
So you're telling us that a spouse can have a significant influence on the entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah. I think that if entrepreneurs ask me a question, I would say it's easier to build a business if you're unmarried with no kids. Of course it is. You have less responsibility. If not, you better have a supportive spouse or it's just not going to work. And that extends to willing to do the things that she's done, but it's also just taking care of the kids at times when I can't.
Ah, interesting. How old are your kids?
4-year-old twin boys.
4-year-old twin boys. And do they understand that their dad's in business? He's an entrepreneur?
They know the name of my company. They know that I work on a computer. I think that's the extent of it. Yeah, We'll get them washing cars soon.
Give me that again?
We'll get them washing cars soon.
You're going to encourage the entrepreneurship. The website address of this organization known as Go.
Yeah, drivego.com, drivego.com.
Mm-hmm. And why is it a better idea?
It's cheaper and easier than traditional car ownership. So get a car in about 4 minutes, save 20% a month.
Mm-hmm. Give me that again. What? Drivego.com?
Drivego.com.
Excellent. We've been speaking with Michael Beauchamp, founder and CEO of Go. Shannon, can you give us a rundown of who else we've had the opportunity of speaking with today?
Sure, Herb. We had a great show today. We started off with Chuck Ormsby, managing partner of Semanoff Ormsby Greenberg Torchia, followed by Rick Stiebritz, president of Fischer, Cunnane. Then we had Ira Saltiel, director of Boys and Girls Club Bike Exchange. And just now we wrapped up with Michael Beauchamp, founder and CEO of Go.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Shannon Lane Newmark, Caleb Hoppus Hanlon, David Jackowitz, Evolution Financial Group, and John Sharp, Hardenberg Insurance Group, for giving me a hand structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.